We're joined now by Alvin Louie of Courage is a Habit. Alvin, thanks for joining the Steve Deace show today, minus Steve Deace.
Hey.
Appreciate you joining us and appreciate your work as well. You put out a video this week. We're going to talk about your organization, what you're focused on here in just a little bit. But you put out a video this week talking about a new study from Finland. And my understanding, essentially, is what this study did. It took several peer-reviewed issues. I think it had billions of dollars in funding and basically came to the conclusion that water is wet. Can you tell us more?
That's right. Yeah, water is wet. That's right. After $50 million, water is wet, and money makes life a little easier. That's the result. So no surprise to anybody who's been fighting the transgender cult. They saw that youth who went through the transgender surgeries, because of this social contagion, actually had a much higher rate of suicide. More specifically, the boys who had about 10% rate of suicide after they had their penis removed had a almost 61% chance rate of suicide. For the girls who went through the surgery and basically just had an appendage attached to their abdomen because their vagina was removed, they came in with about 22% suicide rate, and then after the surgery they had a near 54.5% suicide rate. Now, this study is the longest study of its kind. There isn't anything like it in the world because it started in 1996 and then it ended in 2019. So you're talking about 23 years, because remember, there's a lot of countries over there that started this barbaric practice before we did in the US. And so they have a lot more data, which is even more evil for us, because in America, there was plenty of data that this was harming children, which, again, you didn't need data to know you can't be mutilating kids. But we weren't the first to do it, but we still did it anyway, despite all this evidence from European countries. So obviously a water is wet study, but it's very sad because these are obviously young people whose life has been permanently altered.
Alvin, you're perfect to fill in for Steve because he's larger than life, and you have that aspect to you as well. Also, in terms of the marching orders you both give, you are both talking while you talk about the issue. Your website is giving people marching orders, how to very specifically get involved. Steve has written books like that as well. I want to talk about that on a number of fronts. But first, this is nothing short of a crime against humanity. Steve has written books. 2 books related to COVID on that front. One of them had Nuremberg in the title because it's that level of trials that should be happening regarding what happened with COVID. The same is true here. Is there any chance that we will have eyes to see and ears to hear anytime in our lifetimes, Alvin, where we will have a legal reckoning that is necessary to make sure something like this never happens again?
Oh, I 100% believe that. I'm very optimistic that in the next 10 years we will. Because for 2 reasons. Number one, you have a lot of detransitioners coming out now, obviously, filing lawsuits. You have lawsuits coming out of schools where they're keeping transgender secrets from parents. We just had a huge case with the Supreme Court where they struck down Colorado trying to prevent what they call conversion therapy, right. Which is the way they talk about is you cannot find out what the root cause is of a child thinking they're born in the wrong body. So it's really important that parents continue to use things like our opt-out form. Speaking about marching orders, we can talk about that. Is you have to put something in front of the schools for them to break it. Because the law is not proactive. I think that's one of the misnomer that a lot of Americans still have, that the law will protect me. No, the law doesn't protect you. The law is reactive. So, for example, we have laws to prevent, or we have laws to say you can't murder people. That doesn't keep people from murdering people. What that does is that the law, if we catch the murderer, punishes. people. That's the whole point. And so for when the Supreme Court passes these injunctions and they pass these cases, a lot of parents go, yay, this is great. It's out of the schools and the schools can't keep secrets. No, you have to put it on the schools, make them break it, then you sue them. And so the more lawsuits we have, the bigger the chance that we can start going after these doctors, these clinics, these mental health offices, mental health professionals, school counselors, because they are the ones that put the child on that operating table. And so we want to see, I mean, at the minimum, bankrupting these people, we want to see prison time because this is a crime against children. So everything that we do at Courage is a Habit is in service of that, to help parents, give them the tools so that they can put it on the schools, and either A, the schools follow it and great, they protect their kids, which is the point, or two, the schools break it, and then it starts, we can start building these class action lawsuits.
It's unquestionable that you have breathed life into the title of your organization across the country. Courage is becoming a habit, even in blue states. More and more people are speaking out. This is going on in Colorado, where they got this kind of thing, this issue on referendums. So that's good. But the appetite for evil on the left has they have not turned down the volume in any way. There's a hospital in Michigan that just promised, we're going to re-rack our transgender surgeries. We're not going to stop. We paused for a little while. Now, so what have you learned as momentum has been gained on our side, Alvin? The passion of the evil on the left has not changed, but have their tactics changed on the left? Because, like I said, California, the hospitals in Michigan, Minneapolis right now, Colorado, this evil is still going on everywhere. Are their tactics changing?
No, and the reason why their tactics don't have to change is for one reason. Americans, by and large, still have an empathy problem.
Yes.
Meaning they have too much of it. And so long as that we are letting our kindness and our empathy be weaponized, they don't have to change tactics. So they'll change tactics when people go, I don't care if you call me a bigot, transphobe, homophobe, racist. Once those words don't mean anything to the majority of Americans, once you can't dangle a child that you brainwash and say that child's going to die, and then you go, okay, you know what? Maybe we should find a compromise. Until the majority of Americans reject inclusion and embrace exclusion and embrace the fact that we cannot have our empathy be weaponized, they won't need to change tactics, because every time you get them into a corner, they pull out that empathy and kindness card. They start talking about human rights and human dignity, and you see it all the time. And the reason why they don't have to change is because a lot of people still don't have the courage to be able to stand on a solid rock and say, I don't care. I don't care what you call me. I'm not going to have my empathy be weaponized. My empathy goes towards the kids that haven't been mutilated yet. My empathy doesn't go towards the kids that you're dangling in front of me, that you have brainwashed.
So, Alvin, on your website, your organization's website, courageisahabit.org, there's another topic, and it's related, but another topic that I think there's a good opportunity for parents in particular, to get activated, to get involved. As I understand it, you go to courageisahabit.org, their tool of the week educates about something the largest school counselors association in the country is now promoting, some sort of weird radical feminist indoctrination. It's couched as curriculum, but indoctrination. Tell us more about this and how parents can get involved.
Absolutely. So the American School Counselor Association, or ASCA, as we call them, ASCA, manages and trains school counselors in all 50 states. So all 50 states uses the ASCA model for their mental health. So whether you're in California, whether you're in anywhere in between, all the way to New York, when your schools talk about mental health, they're talking about ASCA standards. So let's set that foundation. So what you're seeing there at courageisahabit.org on the tool of the week is the ASCA, the organization, partnered with a radical, disgusting feminist organization called Lean In. And Lean In has a school program called Lean In Girls. and they're in your schools, and they target girls between 11 and 15. Now, besides the usual feminist propaganda, family hating, man hating, abortion, all those kind of things, they also teach these girls that boys can have, and I quote, the girlhood experience. And so the reason why they're picking on the 11 to 15 is because, and this is for any child, even a boy, but especially for girls, that is the most vulnerable age when you're growing up, because you're not a baby, you're not like a toddler, but you're also not so grown that if you're raised right, you kind of, you're like, okay, you're starting to be able to think for yourself. That 11 to 15 is very vulnerable because that's when you're going through puberty. And so this Lean In Girls, this radical feminist program is designed, for lack of a better description, is to create more Renee Goods. That woman that got shot by ICE because she's out there screaming, impeding ICE. They want girls to be angry. They want them to have no hope. They want them to be as miserable and unlikable as possible. And they want them to be able to accept transgenderism. However, here's the however, the reason why they can get this past parents is because they disguise it under two umbrellas: mental health and female empowerment. And so unless you have like an organization like ours that dive deep, go to their webinar, go to their, find their training material and expose it, because when you look at the training material, obviously it's not mental health or female empowerment, is to create more people like Renee Good.
Last question here, Alvin. You'll have a few minutes to answer it.
Okay.
Action steps. Again,
yes.
the getting this thing that's polling, as you poll people these days, and more people, even people on the left, are like, I'm exhausted by the trans stuff. Yeah. But it's one thing to poll it, and it's another thing to put it in action. Here in action in the next year is going to be a vote. And people are concerned about economic issues, other issues as well. In the next couple months, how do you make sure this is on people's radar so that it's not just a thought and emotion in their head? It turns into a vote to make sure we do not, right here in Iowa, the Democrats who unanimously voted for transgenderism. We beat that back before just about anybody else. But there are leftists coming in from other states to try to turn us back. How do we make sure people are staying on target and not just saying, yeah, we got some victories here, I'm sure we figured this out?
Well, it's the understanding that communism, because that's really what we're talking about. All the transgenderism, the critical race theory, all these things, it's just a vehicle to deliver communism to America. I want everyone to understand that communism and the American attitude of live and let live, and I'll give my shirt off my back to my neighbor, those two philosophies are actually a terrible matchup. Because when you wake up in the morning, you think about, there's 100 things you think about, and it's all about improving your life or improving your children's life or your work or your hobbies or your business. When the communists wake up, 100% of their effort is spent infringing on you. So they will never back off. They will continue to move forward and infringe on you unless you fight back. So there's never a time as an American where you can go, I think we're good. I think I can go back.
Exactly.
And I think it's that going back and going to sleep is how we got here in a lot of different places. So as a parent, let's just take the Lean In Girls. If you go to the Lean In Girls tool at courageisahabit.org, we give you these turnkey letters, or we teach you how to do a FOIA request to see if your school's using it. We give you opt-out letters. Like we have an opt-out there where you go, hey, any kind of Lean In Girls feminist program, whether it's a Lean In Girls or a similar program, you don't have my permission to have my daughter attend these unless I see it first or unless I get my written permission. So we want parents to be very active in that, because a lot of parents, the schools never hear from them. They kind of complain on Facebook sometimes, but they don't really hear. The principal, the vice principal, the superintendent doesn't hear from 50 parents turning these things in. And while it may not seem like it's a lot by turning, these kind of turnkey things that we make for you, if you do it in volume, they absolutely hate it because they are so not used to pushback. And so staying on offense is really important. You're talking about voting. All of this stuff in K through 12 and the trans stuff leads to people voting for your own demise. So if you want to help elections, make sure that your children and your children's friends aren't brainwashed to vote for their own demise.
Man, I mean, you are one of the hidden gems of a movement that we need to be breathing life into on a daily basis. Really appreciate your time, Alvin.
Alvin,
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you so much. CourageIsAHabit.org is the website. Thank you again, Alvin, for all of your great work. Keep it up, man. Appreciate it.